Okay, let's get started looking at Google Classroom. So if you go to classroom.google.com or find Google Classroom in your Google Apps waffle, you're going to want to go ahead and create a class. Now, students will join your class, teachers will create a class. If there's a prompt that asks you if you're a student or a teacher, make sure you select your teacher. But we're going to go ahead and I'm going to create my class. So this is going to be called Shelter in Place. Place. And it's going to be section number, we'll do section number 2. And I'm going to go ahead and create. Now, this is all I have to do in order to create a class. For secondary teachers, I would encourage you to make separate classes for each of your class periods to help you stay organized with your students. Now, in here, in my classroom, my stream, this is where all the information is going to go for students. Classwork, this is where I can assign work for students, and we'll talk about that in a moment. People, this is where students will add themselves into my Google Classroom. So I can add students manually by inviting them, by putting in an email address, but I can also ask students to join my class using the class code, and you'll see it right here, CLTJSBP. You can display it larger if you need to, but I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to join this class as a student. So in my student window, students would come over, they would hit the join button, and they would enter that class code. And that would bring them right into our Google Classroom. So while middle school student is joining, I'm going to come right back here, and you'll see in just a second under people that student will appear here as soon as it finishes joining them. So let's go back and take a look. They're in my class. Perfect. So there we go right here, middle student. Now, I'm going to go to classwork and let's assign some work in here. So there's a few different features in Google Classroom that are all really, really fantastic. Assignment, and we'll talk about this in a second. You can create quizzes. I really like this question feature, especially as a warm-up in my class. So let me go to question, and I can assign a question. I already have this preloaded, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reuse a post. One of the cool features of Google Classroom is you can reuse posts from other classes. So here's my question. It's about my social distancing relief package. And because I reuse it, it just automatically pulls up all the information. And actually, that was the assignment. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'll come in here. I'm going to create a question, but I already have that question, so I'm just reusing the post. Here it is. If social distancing was the new normal. When I reuse that post, it just brings in all the information that I've already preloaded on there. Now, in the question feature, I'll post a question. I have some instructions for students once they've submitted. I'd want them to go through and I want them to respond to some prompts. So I gave them kind of a prompt for their response thinking. Now, where it says 4, this is for one class. If I had 6 of these classes, I could select all of the classes I want this to assign to, and this single post will go to all of them. I can also select all students, or I can select individual students. If I have a question that's not for everybody, I would just check those students. There's a point value associated with it, a due date and time. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'll make this due today. And I'm creating a topic for it called warm-ups. If you don't have any topics, that's okay, and you can create them. Topics just are a way to help organize things. And since this is a warm-up, I just wanted to create a warm-up topic. Now, these checkboxes, students can reply to each other and students can edit answers. I'm going to leave the ability for students to reply to each other. You do not see other students' responses until you submit your own first. So it's a really nice way to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to think and have their voice before they're influenced by everybody else. And then we're going to let them to reply. I'm not going to have them edit their answers, but if you wanted to, you could, and give them an opportunity to come back and make a change to their original response. So I'm going to go ahead and I will ask this question. So now, once we come over here, I'm going to go jump in. You'll see as a student that my stream will be updated. It says stream is updated. I can show the new one, or I can just simply refresh, and I have a question in here. So if I click on the question, now there's this area for class comments. These right here are comments about the prompt. These will be seen by everyone. This is not where you respond, okay? Where you want to respond is where it says your answer. I think that people should have a rotating work schedule. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that in. It asks if I want to submit my answers. And once I turn that in as a student, I will have the option to see classmates' answers. Now, right now, I'm the only student in here, but I would see those answers start populating there. I'm going to jump back to the teacher view now. So if I come back as a teacher, and I come to that classwork tab, and I see my question. If I click on the question, you'll see there's one that's already turned in. Now, as more students join my class, you'll see that there's some assigned, but until they submit it, they don't go over to that turned in. I can click on that, and now I can see all those responses, and I can reply myself and provide some feedback here. That is an interesting idea. Can you tell me more? I also, from here, have the ability to award points back. So I can say, hey, you know, that's a great answer, and I'm going to give you full credit for that. You don't have to grade here. These will go to the Google Classroom gradebook. But since we're living in this little twilight zone, you're still using Q, there's Google Classroom. You may find some benefits or not with that. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and I'm going to return this to the student. Now, here's the next thing I'm going to ask. We're going to move on, and I want to go back to my class, shelter in place, and I'm going to go to the classwork tab because I have an assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and create the assignment. Again, I already created this, so I'm just going to reuse the post. This is the social distancing relief package assignment. And I'm going to post this in here. So once you are in the assignment phase, you can do a lot of really interesting things. One, I added a Google Doc. So if you hit add, you can add from Google Drive and you can select a doc. Now this doc is what I want students to work on. So I want to make a copy for each student, but you have these three options if you insert a Google Doc. Students can view the file. That means there's one doc, maybe their instructions, everyone sees it. The advantage to using that is if you make changes on that view file, those changes will be reflected for all of the students. If you use students can edit the file, maybe this is a place where you want them to respond in a table and communicate digitally on a single document. So all students would have edit access to that. If it's a slide presentation, every student can now make their own slide on that edit document, and it keeps everything together in one spot. The make a copy for each student will actually take my original doc and it will make a copy for every single student in the class. And it'll have their name on it. It will be a different copy. If I make a change to the original doc, once I send this out, those changes will not be reflected on student work or on the student's copy. So again, I can select the classes I'd like this to go to. I'm just going to keep it to this one. I have a point value, again, a due date on here. I'll make this due tomorrow. And I don't have a topic for this. This is just going to be classwork. If I wanted to, I could create a new topic or add it to one that already exists. And then you can see here, I've already attached a rubric to this. But if I haven't used the rubrics yet, I'm going to go ahead and I'll delete this rubric. And I can go ahead and create one. So what I'm going to do is I'll create, the first criteria is this a creative solution? And I'm just going to have a single point rubric, 1 point criteria it is or not. You can add more. I'm also going to have another piece of criteria that says, is there a thorough analysis of the economic impact? And again, this is going to be a 1 point rubric. So I'll just put points. I'm going to leave it at 1. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll save this. So that rubric has been attached. You don't have to attach rubrics. The originality report runs a similar function like turnitin.com. So it's kind of cool and you can check it out. We'll talk about it a little bit later. When I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and assign this. So now that I've assigned a copy for each student, I want to go back to my student account and I'll show you what that looks like. So let me slide back over here and I'm going to come back to the course. There we go. And you'll see that there's a new assignment in here. If I click in that assignment, I can see my work. Right? And there's this document that's been created for me. So I can go ahead, I'll open up that document as a student. I have a place to start responding to the prompts in here. I have a link to the class Flipgrid and the instructions for the final product of this assignment. And I can click on that, and that'll take me directly to actually where we're going to respond. So that's what it looks like as a student. When I'm done as a student, I can hit this turn in button, and it will turn this assignment into Google Classroom. If I hit that turn in button, I am now only view only on the work doc. You can see it hasn't refreshed yet, but if I refresh that, I have to request edit access if I want to make any changes, because I've gone view only because I've turned it in. Now, as a student, I can also remove that if I wanted to. Sorry, let me finish the turn in button. But I can unsubmit that, and I can still make some changes. So I'm going to jump back into the teacher window now, and you'll see here as the teacher, if I click on the assignment, the social distancing relief package, and I come in to, oops, so if I come in here, you'll see I have one that's already been turned in, and here's that student work. So if I go ahead and open it, one of the nice things is Classroom has made it a lot easier as you open work to go ahead and grade it. So I can use the rubric directly right here. I can say, yep, you did well there, you did well there. And you'll see that it just adds up the point values to make 100 for me. Or I can leave some private comments, and I can say, you know, you forgot to add info. And I can go ahead and post that in. Okay, those comments will be attached to the document for the students. And when I'm done, I can go ahead and I can return that work to the students. In this window, I can also click through. I don't have any other students in here, but I can click through and see everybody's assignments, which is really fantastic. So if I come and look at the student window here, you'll see I have one private comment on the document, and I can see the rubrics and everything that are built in to that. Now, the last thing I want to show you here as a teacher is if I go back to my classroom and I come to grades, you'll actually see in my Google Classroom gradebook, those scores have been carried over for the student. Anyway, well, that's a lot to start with. So we'll spend a little more time talking about this, but good luck, everybody.